All right, what's up, y'all? FastForwardGaming here. We're back, and with another Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth video. This time, my commentary on this video, Big Brain FF7 Rebirth Theories with Maximilian Dude. Kind of just going over my critiques and thoughts on this video, and my reacts, you might say.
The future, even if it has been written, can be changed. So focus on the future, not the past.
Hey everyone, Damiani here. I'm joined by Bradley Ellis.
Yo.
And you knew he was going to show up eventually. Maximilian Dude, how's it going, man?
I'm from the unnamed third game already.
Oh shit.
Yes, it's called Reunionsurrection.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask you, Max,
What a loser.
what you thought it was going to be called, because
Oh god.
because we know it's going to come true, man. Like, people already pointing to the stuff you were like talking about before, and like I saw people time stamping stuff that you were saying, and in the past, like, dude, the prophet. But if you have, if you're watching this video and you don't know why you were here, I'll explain it for you anyway. To be just being redundant.
Prophet?
Yo,
You didn't
Final
get,
Fantasy 7
like,
Rebirth
anything right.
trailer dropped, and we need to talk about Final Fantasy 7. And last
Their
time
capture
we
of
did
it
this,
is really bad.
minds exploded, and people went nuts. And you know what? We want to hopefully give you more of that. Not promising, but we'll see what goes down today as Max once again tries to enlighten us and expand our minds about the possibilities
He's so
of where
smart.
we're going. And I'm very excited because, man, like, just seeing the little morsels we got was so satisfying. But just the interview remarks, or sorry.
And I look forward to calling out Max when he's wrong and praising him when he's right. But this is a lot of showboating. Max is just like generally just a showboating connoisseur. Loves to show off and just act like he knows everything. So that type of personality just kind of pisses me off. So sorry if you don't like that, but I don't like people that think they know everything. And I like to admit when I don't.
The Twitter statements they put out afterwards, that the naming of these games is so important. We called Remake it for a reason. You'll find out why we call this Rebirth. And it's just like, oh man, we're in for a wild ride, aren't we?
Yeah, because the assumption was that part two, and this is actually, I think, come as a detriment a little bit to Square and the
And yeah, I'll have to wait until the new Ultimania comes out, or whatever it's called, for Rebirth, but I can't see why it's called Rebirth any more than Remake's called Remake. Like, there's no like signifying difference. Like, Remake is, they could have just called it Remake 2 and it wouldn't really make much of a difference, because Remake is basically the same thing as Rebirth. Like, I don't think you can contextualize what the differences between Remake and Rebirth is, but also, Rebirth would kind of mean it's just like the same thing again, exactly, wouldn't it? So,
FF7 Remake trilogy now, where people are like, it's not called part 2, right? It's not called Remake part 2. It's called something else. So I've had a lot of people be like, what's Rebirth? Where they don't know.
I get you.
Where they are actually confused. People are actually confused by, like, wait a minute, so this is the second one to that one we played a few years ago? And it's like, yes, this is actually the sequel to that. They're like, oh, why isn't it just called part 2? Now, I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but Remake was not describing what the game is, but the intentions of certain characters. And I can tell you again, as having to, like, redescribe a lot of this stuff again and revisit some of these, like, crackpot theories at the time.
I think I might just watch this.
Many people did not pick up on this stuff, and I'm not surprised, because it's not clear. It's really, it's like a Dark Souls level narrative where you gotta really, like, look beyond just the surface level to see what the heck characters are doing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty unfortunate, because I think the concept has been really intriguing, almost to the point of, like, I think it's, like, as a Final Fantasy 7 fan, I feel it's brilliant. But you're absolutely right. Like, to like the average person who's just maybe, like, excited about these games, look flashy, cool, everyone's talking about them. This is like a marketing problem where people don't fully grasp what they're buying. Like, not quite as bad as, like, the dumb Wii to Wii U situation where, like, oh, I'm buying a peripheral. But yeah, when people go in and ask for part 2, you gotta hope that the salesperson or the person at the front's like, oh, you mean Rebirth, and they're like, and they gotta convince them, like, no, I mean part 2, and they're like, no, you mean Rebirth. It's like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something that they'll have to tackle with like the naming conventions, because obviously the naming conventions have really specific meaning now because they've officially said it. And what each one is, it's a
No. Again, he's saying they can officially said it. They can say lots of things. They can say that clouds from the moon. Like, it doesn't make it really true. Like, that's just your opinion, man, as a famous person once said.
It's about like remaking anew or giving new life type of stuff. So it's remake, it's rebirth, two very similar words, you know? And apparently in Japanese, like what rebirth is called is something also has like a double entendre.
Oh, really?
In
Okay.
many ways. And it's about like, you know, creating a new type of thing, creating something from something else and creating a new, because rebirth isn't about a new birth. No, it's about being born again. Remaking something is about making something that was old and making it new again. So the third one's going to be the exact same thing, right? It's going to be something that like reanimated, or it was seemingly reunion would have been the best thing, but that's now that's Crisis Core, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know you've got a bunch of stuff you want to unleash on this, Max, but I actually do have a question. I think an average Final Fantasy VII fan will probably be wondering this. It's one of the biggest things they might change, and do you think they dare change it, especially if they'd be calling Rebirth and having multiple meanings? Because a thing that gets born again is also a phoenix, and we know phoenix downs are very important in Final Fantasy. So,
I like this take.
And knowing how we're only getting 3 parts and how far this is going to go, it's very likely that the death of Aerith might be in this part. Do you think these games are going to play around with that expectation? And do you think, A, she does die, or B, do you think that there's a way to save her possibly, or do you think that's not happening?
I think this is officially a spoiler mode video now. So
It's so annoying how they just like, it's basically like, let's extract the content from Max because we can't produce any content of our own. I guess I'm kind of doing the same thing here. But I'm not really pointing to him because I'm not talking with him. But yeah, basically, it kind of annoys me how they just subservientize themselves to Max, and it's like, you know, or
that's good.
Have an original opinion and not divert everything to what does he think, and like, because if basically I don't think what he thinks, then I'm wrong. No, okay.
We've now reached the spoiler mode territory. I'm curious what Brad has to say about that. Like, what do you feel like they're going to do? On your end, Brad.
Wow, actually listening to what Brad says is crazy. That's funny. He's wearing the PS5 headset there.
Definitely think they're going to tease the death throughout the game. Cloud is going to get more visions throughout, like what happened in the original game.
Okay, so we're going to stop here. So, that didn't really happen. I mean, the visions were never as manifested as it was in Remake. Now there was, you know, little hints that Aerith would drop, like, oh, that's to the future self, or no, like, you can't fall. Well, no, did she say can't fall in love with me? Oh no, that was in Remake. I think she said stuff similar to that in Rebirth, but she still, like, you know, wanted to go on a date and stuff, but kind of didn't really care about that anyway. So,
and we will get to that moment where she died in the original. It won't play out exactly the same, but she will die. I think by the end of all of this, everyone will end up exactly where they were in the original. They might not get.
See, Brad is the one who knows, dude. He gets it. He does not. Max does not
get there the same way, but all the characters we know that are still alive will be dead at some point. I could see them not killing her this part. It just depends where it ends, I guess, but I feel like they're going to definitely toy with the player in that regard.
So I think that's a really sound argument because, and it's funny, I read a lot of takes of like, they're going to kill Tifa instead, Yuffie's going to die instead. And I'm like, so here's the funny thing about this whole game is that outside of a very small percentage of part 1, that game was brutally faithful. If in fact was even more faithful in some ways and expanded on things in some ways you might have liked or not liked, significantly more in the Midgar section of Final Fantasy VII. So, and considering the facts that the devs have said, that I think it's the new director of the game had said multiple times that, yeah, we want the players to still, if you expect things, they were going to go there. If you remember things, we're still going to go there. So they don't, that's why this game is so big, and they keep saying how big it is, because they know that they have to meet those expectations. So why wouldn't that happen again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you kill Fate and this crazy Kingdom Hearts monster, and all this crazy stuff happens at the end of like through 7 Part 1 that is weird and different, but eventually they all end up on their way to calm, you know, with very similar intentions. Zack is alive. We don't know how. The party doesn't know how, but
Okay, so he is grounding his theories a little bit more right now. For right now, for
in
7
terms
minutes.
of the main character's story, yeah, they're all doing the exact same thing they were doing in the old game.
Yep.
So yeah, to me, I agree with Brad completely. Why would they deviate crazy from that? You know?
Yeah.
Good.
I agree
You
with
should
that argument, actually. I
agree
don't
with
think
Brad.
playing with expectations is about as far as I think they'll go, but I think they're going to still land on the same places by the end.
Sure.
I absolutely think that. Now, I do have a different question, but you did mention Zack, and before I forget, I both of you are big like Zack fans. I want to know what you think his involvement in Rebirth is going to be. Like, how is his role going to expand now that he is alive, either in this reality or in supposedly another reality?
So this might be like a level 3, bringing back the levels.
Oh God, with this shit!
And
Shut the fuck up.
A realization I had when I was reviewing the
not
Crisis Core
smarter than
trailer and
anyone
the main
else.
trailer, and Cloud says something really specific in the new trailer, and everything in that trailer is super
well,
curated.
every single
right?
word
I feel like
means
the
something.
gameplay footage is there to show off a lot of the photogrammetry that UE5 can do, and I think it's like a direct demonstration of a lot of Unreal 5 elements, but just not a lot of gameplay stuff, obviously. I think everything is very specific as well as what characters are saying. And there is a spot in
It
the
was
trailer
in
where
Unreal
Cloud
4,
says
so.
something about Zack that he
What is
does
he even
not say
talking
in the
about? It's
original
Unreal
game.
4.
And it's essentially an acknowledgement of Zack's existence at some point in Part 2. So that doesn't come until way later, right? The big revelation where he figures out who he actually is, spoiler mode. So the fact that there is already such a huge importance on Crisis Core Reunion, right? The level 3 is this. Crisis Core Reunion essentially reveals the gigantic M. Night Shyamalan twist of Final Fantasy VII, right? It makes that null and void. So they're expecting the players to have played this game and know Zack's story and know what happens with Cloud, what actually happens, which essentially throws a complete wrench into the unreliable narrative of a lot of what happens in the original FF7, including even him telling the story in calm and stuff like that. So they're ruining what is essentially the Part 3, like end of Disc 2 big reveal. The biggest twist of the game is essentially ruined. So what's there to make up for it? And that's the thing, is like whatever they have planned is worth letting the players know and reminding you and literally telling you, go buy this other game that ties all the story together.
So this is just him wrong, and assuming things because of one line that Cloud said. Because he knows it just played out differently. He just thought Zack, he remembered who Zack was, sort of, but he thought it was the guy that flew along in the river, and that's pretty much the only change that happened. So all of this is just nonsense.
Understand this, but even you understanding this, by ruining what Cloud's character technically is, there's got to be something else, and that's where I don't know where it goes, man. I don't know. I have no idea what the hell Nojima and Kitase are planning. That's levels beyond where I'm even understanding where they're actually taking the story. But it seems that the relationship with Cloud and Zack and what they went through is technically more important than Cloud's big, it's a twist, kind of reveal at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about like what they're gonna. Okay, so if we know as the players the whole revelation about Cloud and Zack, their
Sure.
whole kind of thing, and they expect us to play Crisis Core before this, I am wondering, totally happened, if they're gonna tie in Angeal, Genesis more into all this, like maybe Cloud will have flashbacks with them somehow tied into the flashbacks, even though they weren't in the original game.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to bring in Genesis. Maybe at the very end of Revelation. We already know Genesis isn't obviously in anything in Rebirth. And I think that they want to keep it as pure to the original as possible. I don't think they're going to mess with it.
I'm just trying to think what they could add to us to make us question things without knowing everything, because they have to do something now.
Because what's the elephant in the room?
Yeah.
The elephant in the room is wearing a red cloak.
Yeah.
And is a J-pop star.
Yeah.
The big elephant in the room is like, is Gax gonna come back?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think like
yes.
Cloud having revelatory moments about Genesis or like Angeal is really important to Cloud, right?
Not.
It's not like, in fact, like Sephiroth is Cloud's main bad guy, and to Zack, the big the big focus of Crisis Core is that Angeal's part of the story technically like practically ends halfway through the game. Spoiler mode because he dies. And then Zack gets much older, and it's all about like this, what's happening with Genesis. So Genesis is the big bad guy of like Crisis Core. That's what they build up to in many ways, right? So if anything, if Genesis is relevant in Remake Part 2, to me it makes the most sense that that's related to a live Zack, right? Because we all are brutally hyper aware that Genesis didn't actually die. You know, that he does live on, and he carried Weiss's husk of a Hojo's stupid corpse into the sky with his one wing like a weird asshole
at the end of
Dirge of Cerberus. So it's like that's around, right? And they're
okay,
clearly
so he did play
at
Dirge.
the beginning of that presentation, the part where it's scrolling over all the text, and I'm like, don't do it. And then it starts going Dirge of Cerberus. I'm like, okay, man, here we go.
It's canon whether we like it or not.
So I don't know. Like I'm sort of thinking that. What's going on with Zack? Like how is Zack related? I think all that stuff that happened at the end of like pre-Yuffie DLC, the bag and you know the stamp thing, whatever that dog's name was. It's been a couple years, but like all that stuff is there very purposefully, and it's all still making sense. Why Zack is back at the end of the Yuffie DLC and Aerith is seemingly gone / dead is the impression that scene gives, because they're in I think Zack's in a different timeline. I think that's the whole point, right?
No.
So a lot of
different Zack,
a different reality.
Exactly. So I still think they're going to be toying with that. And I think that's going to be a big part of Part 2, where you essentially get your characters on your main adventure, and somewhere out there, it seems like Zack is on his own adventure. And I think it would be really... I'm like thinking of like, what do you do with that? Like, how do you
That's actually
fuck
correct.
with the player in those situations? Because maybe the players don't actually realize they're two different timelines, and it just seems like Aerith is missing or something like that.
Right. I wonder if... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I wonder if, since the, Cloud, they're all kind of linked with the Genova cells, I wonder if they will be on these separate timelines, but getting visions of what each of them are doing in different timelines almost.
Yeah.
Something to connect them. Because in the Rebirth trailer, there's
That's
that
correct.
white feather. And I'm trying to remember, is that Angeal's
That's
wing color?
the closest that could be is either like Angeal, maybe representative of Aerith, but if we're talking specifically like black feather Sephiroth, white feather usage in previous media, the white feather is Angeal.
Yep.
I don't know if Angeal's gonna be a Force Ghost, or if that ever really happened much in Crisis Core. It's been like a year, a couple years since I played it, but I don't know. I think that's just like that white feather is only ever in the shots where Zack is alive. So I think that more is a metaphor / symbolism that this is his own
because
timeline where it's
Angeal
like
was above
Zack lived
him
and Angeal,
when he died, when Zack died.
Zack's like unfortunate fate didn't happen, and Angeal's like sort of happy that he's alive, kind of thing. That could be what that means.
Yeah.
No, I mean Angeal was just above. He took Zack up to heaven basically when he died. It's like that whole thing at the end of Crisis Core.
Sorry.
If Zack and Cloud are in like a separate timeline, and we have our party that we know of, like they're gonna have to link in some way.
Yeah.
Something is gonna have to happen between these characters meeting each other or connecting mentally. And I'm just like, what are they gonna do?
Here's where the first part of it made in sense how they could do it, where they're essentially doing their own things, right? Where they eventually both sides of the party might have their own goals, where Zack might get a very similar party with Cloud as like an additional member of the party, but Zack's like the leader, and they're both going on their way to like what is eventually the Northern Crater. Because potentially in Zack's timeline, in our timeline of FF7, it makes complete sense that we're on the way to the Northern Crater to essentially deliver the Black Materia to Sephiroth, right? Events will play out in a very similar fashion. But in Zack's timeline, that's not the case. Would it even be Sephiroth in the Northern Crater in Zack's timeline? That doesn't make sense to me either. That makes a lot more sense that would be Genesis or something like that.
Right.
See, he's just assuming shit, huge assumptions, acting like it's facts. It's annoying.
So in the bad guy in Zack's timeline could be like some crazy version of Genesis, like in some way. Like I don't know how they do it. He won't be like stuck in the exact same way because Sephiroth got scooped up through the life stream of the Nebo reactor and chucked into a crazy space rock. Like that's going to be completely different how he's up there. But to me, it would make a lot more sense if you were to inject Genesis into some way. It might be the bad guy on Zack's timeline. That might make a bit more sense.
This is all just
It's
nonsense.
just a theory of like, there's a reason that they're doing all this stuff. I don't love it, I'm curious how they'll handle it, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah, like if they do that, I wonder how long that would be though of you playing this, if you even play that side of the party, because you're gonna have the whole story of like Cloud and Tifa and all of them doing everything. Like how much can you actually fit in?
So there's
Exactly,
the running theory that we had at the end of part 1, where it's like, so how do you handle that?
Grounding.
Like, what is that like? I'm like, oh, it's like
Brad is really good at grounding the conversation and making it in reality. And Max is just a YouTuber.
F8. There's like Laguna bits. Where they're essentially doing, and the best part of FF8, sorry, where they're essentially doing, you know, a very focused party thing with your main crew, and then you get like dream sequences, little bits of this alternate
Laguna side
reality
of
kind of thing that's happening with other characters. And like,
didn't.
I think that was another timeline. I could not tell you. I played FF8 once in 1999, but I'm pretty sure that's what Laguna's side was like an alternate version. So that could happen where you sort of get like tidbits of it, and how cool would it be if it seems like Zack is alive, if it seems like all this stuff is taking place, but eventually they actually reach a certain spot like, where they get to Nibelheim at the exact same time, and Aerith would like feel like a premonition, like exactly she had at the end of part 1, and she turns around, you're expecting Zack to be there because they're literally walking up on each other and no one's actually there, and they just pass by. Because they're in different places, they're in different timelines.
I was going to ask you about this, because Aerith seems to be one of the only ones who possibly knows what's going on, and seeing these alternate things. Like her and Sephiroth are kind of the two things. In terms of these characters meeting, do you think Aerith is the key to that? Maybe maybe her death or her not.
Why is he asking Max? Like Max knows. Like, just ask Damiani too. Like, come on.
Dying at we thought fucks up the timeline or some shit like that. And she is the reason that these things cross over. And if she doesn't die, things will get really fucked up. She's like, no, I have to die, essentially. Because she kind of goes to die in the first, or the original game, I guess you could say.
I like this idea.
And she's like, I gotta die to set things right. You know, then Cloud's having to deal with that, and Zack also. Yeah,
I was thinking about that, and I kind of loved the idea that obviously Cloud already subconsciously knows she's gonna die. Like, the bitch on screen tear cried and didn't understand why he did in the middle of an alleyway when he was talking to her. And it's like, what? Like, what am I seeing? And he doesn't know. So he clearly has like a memory of what's happened before, because this is a sequel. And there is already an inclination that that's going to be the case, where you can sort of hang that above the player's head like a wonderful carrot on a string, where Cloud, by the time he gets to certain parts, or as you get closer and closer to the Forgotten City, is aware of it, right? And might even like tell the other party and everybody that like, yeah, like she's not gonna make it. Like, I know she's not gonna, we have to save her. Even Aerith like knows it, right? But how great of it would it be if like Aerith is just like acting and she knows that she's gonna bite the dust. Like, this is the way like it kind of has to go type of thing. Like, in every situation, it's like a Doctor Strange moment. Like, I've been through this many times, and in every single way I can't be around. Like, oh shit. That I think that burns even worse, where, you know, in any situation, even in maybe the Zack timeline as well, where no matter how this all works out, she has to die. And there's this looming thing about the player's head the whole time that like, you can save her, Phoenix Downs revive people, you know, all this stuff that just like that is like littered throughout the story. I think false hope is the best thing that you could give the player, and then you just take it away from them all over again, because obviously Aerith's death is one of the most impactful moments in video game history, video game storytelling. Everybody, it's like, Luke is my father, Aerith dies, you know, like I'm sorry, Vader is my father, Luke is my father, Aerith dies. So those things are so like in tandem known throughout film and video game history that there's no way to make this, you know, a secret. So you have to do something with it, and I think that's one of the best things you could do with it, is to just give false hope.
Let me go back to what we're talking about. This is related to what we were just talking about, but also back, we talked about like deaths and expectations, and that both of you kind of felt that things are still going to land where they should land based on the blueprint of the original game. Right. One thing we've seen that they're going to have to do a lot of work to get back to that point with the end of Remake was that we see certain characters who should have died are alive, and not just Zack. Talking about seeing Biggs recovering in the room, and what about Jessie? Is, you know, did she maybe also survive? And it's like, are we gonna end up seeing them again? So like, so how do they get to handle that?
Jessie, I think you'll see at Gold Saucer when you go there. In the play that goes on, she will be in the play as an actor.
God damn, Brad's good.
Much.
Yeah, too much.
It didn't eventually have a payout. It just like abruptly ends, and it was sad. But it seems like, okay, this is going somewhere. Like, here's my question for you, Brad. Which timeline does that take place in?
That's a really good question. I think it's gonna be in the Cloud and Code timeline for now.
I think so too.
I think that'll be in that timeline. And like Max said, I think a lot about this game is going to be us being teased of what the fate of these characters was originally, and the game giving you false hope.
Yeah.
Not necessarily maybe Jessie dying in this game, but making you believe that there is hope to save these characters. And I think
so.
Aerith
Brad's
is gonna
wrong
be the
here,
one,
obviously.
like you said, to be like,
Jessie's not alive.
No, there is nothing you can do, kind of thing. We all have to end up exactly where we are. I don't know if that's a part 3 thing, culminating at the end with like Zack there also fighting Sephiroth with you. or something like that. But
or maybe you know, some crazy, because we've been comparing a lot over the couple years that like Sephiroth in part 1 especially is essentially treated like a Darth Vader character instead of like a Jaws, which is he's a Jaws in the original FF7 where he pops up at a very limited period of time just for like shock value and then eventually like big reveal type thing. No, like now he's Darth Vader roaming around and fucking shit up and, you know, causing hell and havoc. Like, okay. So like he's a different entity in this game for sure, in part 1 for sure. So my biggest concern is that they try to actually Darth Vader Sephiroth, and it's like you could save Sephiroth, and I'm like, that would be the worst.
Yeah,
like, do not make Sephiroth not the bad guy to like team up against Genova or something like that, where it's like, yeah, you team up with Sephiroth to fight. No, please don't do that. And that had come into my mental capacity.
I really disagree with this. I think it would have been very cool to have some sort of alternate motive that Sephiroth has, like maybe fighting against Genova or trying to save the planet but in a different way, like I don't know, by stopping Shinra or trying to wipe out all the fiends, or I don't know, something like joining with the weapons, I don't know, something like that. But yeah,
that they could potentially like reverse bad guy Sephiroth, and I just don't think that's a good idea. Considering he's the bad guy through and through of the original, don't do that.
I don't think that's a good idea either. I think maybe they could give you that impression at a point. I don't think you're gonna team up with Sephiroth though to like beat a big bad kind of thing.
Sure.
He's just too fucking evil, man.
He's too fucking evil.
You just can't do that.
Yeah, I agree. I really hope they don't go that Vader route. There's already so many like Star Wars innuendos and references.
Yeah, there should be no Sephiroth redemption or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, and the funniest thing about those quotes that we were just talking about from the directors, and the big one from was it Yoshida? No. Who is the big producer of the game? Kitase, thank you. Where Kitase was specifically mentioning the filmic references, how like part 2 in many trilogies of the past, or trilogy in movies, is like the most beloved one. And it's like, okay, so they're building up that this game's gonna be really big and have a lot of character drama and contention and stuff is gonna happen here, just like disc 1 and 2 of the old game. So the weird thing is that in some old interviews, it might not be Empire Strikes Back that he's referring to as like the greatest sequel, one of the greatest sequels like of film history.
Why is this microphone
which
changing colors?
Obviously taking notes from. It might not be Empire Strikes Back. It might be because he name dropped this movie specifically in a really old interview from like 2015. He name dropped Godfather 2.
Oh.
So that also leads me to like, for one, I might need to see Godfather 2 in full again. But at the same time, like that movie is the way it is and is so beloved in so many ways because of how its characters collide in the story and stuff like that. And it doesn't come out with an exact, like, you know, like here's a cake and everyone's happy. Like, no, there's a lot of really sad shit and stuff like that from what I remember. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting, where it's like it comes across as an Empire Strikes Back situation, and it definitely is, because at the end of part 2, like Cloud's frozen in carbonite somewhere type shit. We got to go find him, go on an adventure to go find Han Solo. It's like the same shit. So I don't know, man. I feel like they want to break hearts. You know, I feel like that's like the whole point, is to break everyone's heart all over again.
Yeah, that makes me wonder if. Do you think like maybe Sephiroth will talk to someone, whether they're Cloud or whatever, but they kind of think that maybe he's not so crazy almost? Like maybe Sephiroth does some mind games to Cloud this time around, even more so. And Cloud's like, maybe he's right, kind of thing. Like, I have to do this to prevent,
like
you know,
he did
you
that with
dying
Tifa.
or you from dying or something like that.
I don't think that's really weird, because it's just an expansion of what already happens to Cloud. Cloud nearly kills Aerith twice because he's being puppeted by Sephiroth in the original game. When what's it called, Temple of the Ancients disappears and turns into the black materia. There's like a very wide shot of him like beating the shit out of Aerith or something. It's like, what is going on? You have to like almost interpret it. And it's like Cloud is his younger teenage self is trying to stop him, because that's who Cloud actually is. And then there's the moment right before Aerith actually dies where Cloud's about to literally impale her.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he's able to get
the
control of it and stop. So there's already, and there's just going to be expansions of that where like Sephiroth is essentially
Except
in
he
his
kind
head.
of like
And you're just gonna feel that a bit more.
was doing that
in the same
actually.
way that like Sephiroth has been haunting Cloud's brain in part 1,
Well,
which
he
is
just
why
like
he
got
shows
the
up
black
even more,
materia
because he is
from
literally
Aerith,
in his brain.
and then just gave it to
yeah,
Sephiroth again.
That shit's gonna be brutal in
But
part
then
2,
somehow
considering how well it was handled in part 1 already. Like,
he has it
that's
still.
gonna be heartbreaking, and that leads to the question: like, is Cloud gonna be the one to actually axe Aerith this time? Like, I don't think so.
Oh.
But I think there's those. That is definitely that he's gonna have maybe dreams of it or something. He'll have a dream of it, and it'll be in PS1 graphics. That's
Stop
that's
with
my
PS1
crazy
graphic
theory.
Crazy.
stuff,
Hey, they go
dude.
really
Stop.
off the deep end
So
and,
stupid.
have Cloud do the deed, and Zach's alive to witness it. Like that's the moment he
Or some
reconnects.
crazy shit like yeah. Oh
Zach
my
sees
God.
it, and it's
Terrible.
like that sets up part 3, where like now Zach and Cloud are like, we're not good, dude. You just killed my girl.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like all this like dual timeline stuff of like maybe that's setting up for the fact that why Jesse could potentially be alive, why Biggs is alive, why Wedge might actually be alive. I was thinking about this a lot where at the end of part 1, Biggs wakes up alive somewhere, right? In the orphanage, right? We don't know if it's the same orphanage that we actually visited earlier in the appropriate time frame,
Correct.
right? In the Cloud's
It's not.
timeline. That could be a different technical, like either a different Biggs or the time Jannies and Fate being destroyed screws up stuff so much that stuff actually crosses over in between.
Yeah.
Time
So how cool,
Jannies?
I was only thinking how cool this would be if Biggs wakes up and he's like, I made it. Wow, this is crazy. Let me go talk to my friends. And nobody's where they should be. And eventually he has to meet up with Zach because he's in the wrong timeline.
Yes, he's
I'm like,
actually
that would be
correct in
fucking
here.
nuts if they did.
Max is actually
If
correct.
Jesse somehow makes it and she's still in like Cloud's timeline and she because normally Jesse might have survived Zach's timeline, right? Well, that would actually make sense. But then she gets zipped over in the same way that Biggs gets zipped over because the time Janny screwed everything up. And you get to the Golden Saucer, and yeah, she eventually just made it to the Golden Saucer,
Time
but she has no idea who
Jannies.
you are. That starts to
would
make a
be
lot of sense.
talking about?
Why there's timeline shit crossing in between,
Makes
and that
me
might be
just-
the stuff that will
just
really
close
make
this
your
video
adventure
every
to
time he says
the
time
Northern
Jannies.
Reactor
Like, just
really unique and very
Why are we
different.
listening to anything
'Cause you
this
can
guy
start to-
says at all?
They can start to get some weird, crazy shit that happens because you don't know what's going on in the other timeline. You really don't have an understanding of what that reality is like, where Cloud lived and Zach lived, and how much that screwed stuff up. So, yeah, I think it's just more stuff of like weird reality distortion, because that's all a huge part of FF7 original, where Cloud has this thing talking to him throughout the whole game, and you don't know what the hell's going on, and you don't understand that until like, you know, the big twist 45 hours in or something like that.
Yeah.
It seems like it could be really fun.
That would be a good. I think that'd be a good replacement for the going the unreliable narrator path. Like this is what they do instead. Is that
Maybe that's worth sacrificing.
Yeah, maybe this is what they can do instead of what you were talking about earlier. You don't think any, like, we keep talking about these as two realities or possibly two different timelines. Like, I thought it was pretty clear, but I've seen some talk about potentially, like, the characters who were supposed to die who are still alive, potentially this, like, one of the realities being it's a purgatory. They did die, and they just, like, they're stuck in a purgatory or something like that. Do you think there's give any credence to that, or you think that's missing the mark?
I mean, I think based on a lot of the stuff we've
just
seen, the
believes
timeline thing
everything.
seems pretty sound, but they could take it whatever direction they want. So I wouldn't say that that's like, you know, oh, no way. Like that theory doesn't make any sense because they could just do it. You know, they could just explain the stamp bag and all that stuff in just whatever way they wanted. But yeah, like the idea that Zach is essentially like witnessing all this stuff and he thinks he's carrying. The only thing that makes me not think that is that at the end of the Yuffie DLC, right? Like,
Yeah.
we get some direct interpretations that what's happening in this timeline is different, right? He's not just witnessing what's happening to Zach in the party. I'm sorry, to Cloud in the party from like an outside, like in between sort of perspective. So we've already seen a couple of examples that he's alive somewhere, but I don't even think we're going to get that as a reveal in part 2.
They're gonna hold that till the end, yeah.
I think they're going to hold that shit until a while. I think will there be another. By the way, are we all kind of agreeing that Crisis Core Reunion is going to have like a cutscene or something?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
it's definitely have something new.
absolutely.
Like there's going to be a thing like after the credits, after he dies, after the big emotional payout happens, and then he gets up, you know, and it's like
Yeah.
it follows a similar pattern, but now we actually see it all happen maybe, you know, in tandem, so it makes a bit more sense. He leaves Cloud at a train station or some shit, I don't know. Like, but we actually see maybe what is of Aerith into that version of Zack at the end of the like the Yuffie DLC.
Yeah, of course, obviously, all this is wrong. Hey, so the video at 3333. Make a wish. Yeah, it's just wrong, obviously. They don't bring in Zach until the end. That part was correct. But everything else is, yeah.
I think they have to do that. They have to tie this in a little bit more, but not directly answer. It's like President Shindo doesn't come up in the screen and go, "It's two timelines," and then he just ducks away. Like you're not gonna get like they're just gonna throw it right in front of your face. The only time you're gonna
Everyone already knows it's two timelines. Like, what do you mean?
get a bigger inclination from a character in the story that goes like, "Here's the story. Jazz Hands is gonna be Bugenhagen." That is part 2.
Damn. Yeah. They gotta add like a little something, just a little tease, let you know. Like,
And Bugenhagen didn't do shit, so that was wrong again. And he's acting like that's Bugenhagen. No, it's your guess and it's wrong. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
so it's all connected.
Yeah, it's just coming out before, like absolutely, it's part of the plan.
Yeah, a year
And
before.
they want you to play it. Like, it's pretty clear. It has its own new subtitle. And that isn't, once again, Reunion isn't like, oh, it's a reunion of these characters after so long. It's a reunion of HD visuals from SD visuals. That's what, no. The subtitles in Final Fantasy VII games do not refer to gameplay things. They directly refer to story things. It's a reunion in a different way that is going to be revealed probably at the very, very end.
Man,
Wrong.
So this is going to be called the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. It's everything in
Yeah.
it. So, man, when else is over, you think they give us a new version of Advent Children? They go, Advent Children something where they do.
Then why'd they call Crisis Core Reunion? because I can't think of anything that's reuniting in Crisis Core. So, yeah, okay.
We don't need to get into that. That's super fun.
Man,
but, yeah.
that's what leads to like the ongoing where it's like after part 3 is out, do you think they stop making Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy 7 games? Hell no, dude. No, this doesn't stop. Do you think these characters just stop after part 3 is out and it makes a ton of money? This is their franchise Final Fantasy outside of the main Final Fantasy, right? It's like FF7 is practically its own big franchise. The only other one that was the closest was 13, and that technically like stopped. I don't think we're getting a new 13 anytime soon. No. So yeah, of course they're gonna keep going. They keep making too much money. Like the licensing alone for FF7 is probably worth just as much as what the game sales make.
Yeah, I think they'll find a way to try and keep it going in some capacity. Maybe it won't be like the full blown like a sequel trilogy type thing, but there's obviously like games that like there's Children, there's Dirge. They could go revisit as much as a lot of people don't like Dirge. It's like, hey, they could be another crack at them to kind of like rehabilitate the image of that game by like making a new version that's actually good this time around. Who knows what they do with that.
And eventually at the end of this whole story, like we're going to get a conclusion that is much different than.
I don't know what the revisionist history is around Dirge. It's good. It was always good. I don't see the problem. The story maybe could use some little help, but because all of the it just like it kind of, I don't know. It didn't really flesh out the characters too much or make you care about them, I guess. And they should have brought the ensemble cast in a little bit more rather than just focus too much on Vincent.
What the original Final Fantasy 7 is and how it concludes and what it sets up for. So like, they can do whatever they want. All I gotta say is that like if they are setting up for something, this crazy story, which is essentially and now 25 years of FF7, 25-year plus story of the original Final Fantasy 7 and the compilation is like coming to a head, and now we're getting close to seeing where it's going and what it could lead to. It has to have a super satisfying conclusion, right? It's got to have something that like feels absolutely great, and you're super satisfied that you spent this like 10-year multi-game journey through like 100 to 250 to 200-hour journey with all these characters. Like it has to be worth it. If they're gonna set up for something else, if there's something else like down the line where it's like another character story or Vincent's doing some weird shit, that's got to be worth it in some way. Yeah, you can't mess with this.
I'm gonna go off the rails here because
I don't think they will do another game like that.
I think this could lead into a transition to something else, another reimagining and a rebirth of another series, Final Fantasy, which should have been potentially a trilogy. I think it'd be insane if all this ended and like it's like credits roll, blah blah. We've seen all the twists and stuff. Like after,
don't you connect this to 10?
And literally you see Tidus swim up to the surface because the Shinra reference in there and that photo in the Shinra office. They're like, oh yeah, we're going there. Like we're connecting this all to Final Fantasy 10.
One thing I need to do is to always connect it to 10.
It's going there.
It has to just naturally like get off the plane and like here we're at Final Fantasy 10 now. Here you go. Like it just lets you off.
The twist is gonna be like something with like the Ancients or Genova, like a Genova Solid, like on that planet or whatever. It's like, because like, hey, they wanted to make 10-3. They have the stupid audio log, which they tease it for forever. Man, Final Fantasy 10 is probably the most popular Final Fantasy right after 7. And if they like 7, they could keep doing it, like making more games after. But I think they run the risk of diminishing returns, kind of like oversaturating it. I think they do have a planned stopping point. But this concept of revisiting a Final Fantasy and like doing it in this style, I think if there's a next prime target for that, it would be 10.
Dude,
and 10's
no
universe.
question.
And there is that loose remark that pseudo connects the two games, but Square Enix wants to go down that rabbit hole. They absolutely could do. Like, imagine the reactions people have when they beat like whatever the third one's called, and there's a post-credit scene and it's just fucking Tidus. People just be like going like absolutely bonkers. Like, wait, what am I watching?
It would be crazy. But I would almost think it would be a disservice to Final Fantasy 7 fans, because if there's one thing about like, and I might also echo this, like why FF7 ended up becoming big, why it's popular. Like there's a lot of people, including myself, that really like Final Fantasy 7 and don't as much like all the other Final Fantasies, and that is something that I think that they might also have a bit of like market knowledge of, right, of like their audience and who they're making this for. It is one of those games that sort of like was very different from all the other games around it when it came out, and it was like a pinnacle game where it's like, oh, if you have a PlayStation, you have to play this shit, So a lot of people that might not even have liked JRPGs ended up. I mean, I can only say this for myself and like a lot of people in my audience that echo a very similar sentiment. They didn't love JRPGs, but they like FF7. FF7 made me play a lot of JRPGs around the PlayStation era and really discover the genre when I was the luckiest person in the world because I literally had the best system to do that on. So for me, I sort of grew into like all the other Final Fantasies and sort of like playing a whole bunch of them, many ones from the future. But it's really like a standalone thing. In the same way that like a lot of fighting game players like their one thing. I like my one thing. I like my characters in my one thing. I like one thing where this one thing plays. I don't like this other thing. Like I think there's a decent chunk of the audience that's like that for FF7, unfortunately.
Yeah, to not be so outlandish, I do not think this is gonna happen. I think it just means. I think at some point they might try and do this Final Fantasy 10. It would be isolated, its own thing, like maybe 10 years from now or something, the same way they're doing this. But no, I completely agree with what you say. I think it's not even like a guess. It's like 100% fact.
Do anything like that at all?
Even Square Enix, they know how important this is, and they wouldn't do anything crazy like that to like jeopardize.
Golden Goose.
Exactly. Like it has to remain kind of like untarnished, essentially. Yeah.
That's why you say untarnished, but the compilation exists. Yeah. Dirge exists. Vincent eventually kills the bad guy at the end of that with a huge space laser using the power of love and friendship. Yeah. Like that happens at some point in that game, for God's sake. So
no, it doesn't.
Choose the stuff that we use for the compilation.
Love and friendship.
The same way like part 1.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll accept if they have Final Fantasy 10 stuff is people playing Blitzball. If they're playing Blitzball at Costa del Sol or Gold Saucer,
I'll take that nod. If like a Blitzball is in Costa del Sol, I'll take that. That would be a nice little nod.
That'll be the best thing if the kids are kicking around a Blitzball. That would be probably the best way to like to nod, if not tie in, like just to like be, hey, something's there.
I gotta segue here, or it could potentially be in Gold Saucer as a mini game, because one thing I want to ask you about is, do we expect Gold Saucer to be in here, and the scale of it? What do you expect from 7 Rebirth's Gold Saucer, man?
So I think the scalability is a great conversation. I think outside of like crazy story theories of where these characters are going, which is the most unknown territory that we're in right now, I think something that is a bit more grounded in what we can talk about is how is gameplay going to change? How is our traversal of the world going to change? And how much is going to be in part 2? And I'm pretty ambitious, right? I don't think this ends at Forgotten City. I don't think it ends with Aerith's death, end of Disc 1. I don't think so. I think this leads all the way up to Northern Crater.
Okay.
And eventually, like I think the story, like this has been my long time theory before we even knew it was a trilogy. That the last thing you see is everything at its most dour. Cloud is dead or presumed missing. Sephiroth got the black materia. Tifa and Barret are imprisoned, about to be executed, and Barret opens the window that Sephiroth got what he wanted. There's a giant meteor that's literally going to kill everybody. You know, cut to credits. Like there's your like really crazy like Lord of the
they
Rings
should have
ending type of
actually
thing.
done
That is,
that.
like, Jesus, where the
So
characters
I
go
give
for years
him
type of thing,
credit
you
a
know?
little bit
So
for this, but
to me, I think
no,
everything
obviously
from
it's
Kong
wrong. So.
all the way to the Northern Crater in part 2. Like actually,
I really think they should have ended it there, right at the end of.
What do you mean for part 3 then? Is it just gonna be like all brand new stuff?
Oh, are you ready?
Yes. Are you ready?
Are you ready? It's
part-
level
part two
16.
and, like disc 2 is such a huge like part of FF7. That's the best stuff that happens. And the nice part about part 3, it's a lot of revisiting. You're going back to places, but there's new things happening. The big world event that takes place in FF7 is in part 3 is the fact that yes, meteor is coming to kill everybody. All the towns are going to be different now. They're going to be like ransacked. People are going to be acting much differently in remake part 3. That the world is about to die. Everyone's going to have much different ways of interpreting this in the original game, where like nothing really changes and people say some minor different things. I think there's a reason to change a lot of the world events because everyone thinks the world is going to die. And then there's also the big one. There's like 7 kaijus that were just released on the planet, and they're just fucking shit up everywhere. Like the planet is defending itself. So, and then there's the other big one, like the first big reveal at the end of or the beginning of part 3. What's different from part 2 to part 3? You have an airship. You're not traveling on a tiny Bronco or like a buggy or chocobo or anything like that. Like now you can just go around the world. So gameplay-wise, part 3 and traversal is very different, you know, as far as how the world is engaged. So you have an airship, kaijus, everyone's acting differently, towns will be different, but at the same time, what is the big difference from like how do you fill that with content? Well, in my opinion, you just make a whole game out of what the player actually does in disc 2 to disc 3. Because what are you doing? You want to go kill those kaijus, right? You want to go hunt these things. They have to be stopped. They're killing people. This is more important than that thing that is going to eventually get here. We have to deal with that, but maybe taking care of the shit on the ground, all the monsters, will actually help us stop the thing in the sky. There's all these materia caves, these ancient legends of old materia that came from, you know, the Cetra, littered throughout the world. Maybe that's actually part of the story now. Maybe Knights of the Round is part of the story, where you have to breed chocobos as part of the story. There's places our airships can't get to that we've only heard about. We have to get a big fucking chicken that is covered in gold. That's the only way we can get over. Like to me, creating all of that stuff and instead of like all the extra bonus side mission things that really make FF7 really fun in the original, I think putting that all into the narrative would be so sick that we actually have to take out all these monsters, and this is like a part of the narrative now before we go to the Northern Crater and eventually fight Sephiroth. But then you also have like the submarine shit. You have a whole underwater part of the game. Like, there's actually quite a bit in part 3, and then part 3 is just a big epic. It's a big globetrotting epic of taking out these kaijus and shit. So at that point, part 3 sounds pretty fucking awesome that you can make a whole game around that.
Yeah, I guess you could do that. The only thing, I guess, you'd be visiting a lot of areas, like you said, they would have to change quite a bit. I guess so they don't feel exactly the same. As
Sure,
part 2.
exactly. Yeah. But then there's a good reason to change stuff. Like things just, I mean, obviously a lot of the work of part 2 is going to go directly to part 3. It's pretty clear. Like world traversal, battle mechanics, like a lot of things are just going to carry directly over, and that stuff takes the most time. Like how is our game played? So you have a reason to change stuff. Like things, there'll be banners and graffiti everywhere. Like people will be fucking shit up because the world is going to end. How does this world react to an eventual apocalypse event?
All right, Max, you talk about the world, and like at that point, if we have all that, it's gonna be a pretty big game, like being able to visit all the worlds. But the biggest question that needs to be answered before you get there in part 2 is, you know, about world traversal. How do you think it's gonna go down, especially in YouTube, Brad? I know you kind of mentioned this to me on the podcast last night. We were talking about the 16 stuff, which is probably what I guess your answer could be for this. But how do you handle like the game in terms of like zones? Like when you're going across like the old map, the world map, like is it just going to be interconnected large environments, or do you think there's going to be a bit of open world? Like how do you think it's going to work? And by the end, how's it like? Is the airship just going to be a thing you get on and just like insta warp the places, or do you actually fly around in a bit?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it'll be like just interconnected zones that are some will be really big. Like there's gonna be like a huge field with the chocobo farm. You know, the snake. You'll be riding around your chocobo. And as for the airship, I wonder if they really want you to fly it actually, but that would require.
We all know this.
I don't think that happens in part
All
2
the
either.
answers to this now, so I don't really say anything.
Some like elevating or escalating your traversal through the world. So, like definitely have chocobos apart one in the buggy probably.
Chocobos, buggy, and you get
Tiny Bronco,
a water-based water-based propeller plane, you know, like that. And that's just like in the same way that like I think the original FF7 was. The natural world opens up in I hate this word, a wide linear kind of way, where it feels like it's big and open, but it's absolutely focused. You're only going the one way, unless we glitch the hell out of some mountains or shit, which people have done. You're only gonna cross that river if you have this Bronco. You're only gonna cross that part of the ocean if you have like the buggy or something like that, or vice versa. You're only gonna get across this field if you have a chicken. You know, there will be parts of the game that you're essentially locked out of until you continue story stuff and get from party to party.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the original game. I mean, that's really. You know, I think people just wanting the original game with just bigger zones and stuff like that is fine. You know, and it's all interconnected. There's no loading. Like that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly what I want. I mean, I was happy when I heard 16 was going to do that. I was like, thank you for because when I mentioned to be globetrotting, especially Final Fantasy VII, there's so many places you go to that can't make that all open world. Like that would never work. The game would take like 20 years to make. So it's like this is where I'd hope it was going to go. And
Hamaguchi, who's like the new director. People might not be aware, but yeah, he was like a co-director of part 1. He is now the lead director of part 2, and Nomura got moved to a creative director assignment. So and it was already presumed that Hamaguchi was like the primary director already of part 1 because the game didn't feel super Nomurian all the time, and he was obviously still working on Kingdom Hearts at the time as well. And he has Nomura's to do with a lot of projects at any given time. And of course, this one is really important. But the fact that Hamaguchi is now the lead of the most important game of all of them, which is technically part 2, is pretty big. And the dude has gone on quote I think twice saying how much he loves Horizon Zero Dawn and how much he was looking forward to the sequel. Because this was like a year and a half ago or something like that. So I don't think we're gonna get a world exactly like an open world like Horizon, but I think having a lot of stuff from that between like side quests, between like random dungeons or small things that just happen, the way they make their world feel alive is probably gonna be something really similar that they do in 7.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, a huge area and you see like those big ass snakes, you know, kind of wandering around in the distance, something like that, making them feel like they're more on the map rather than just like a special event encounter. Like maybe just seamlessly walk up to one of those snakes and just fight.
That's like one of the tenets of the Xenoblade series is like those massive zones with the giant enemies walking around. I mean, I hope we get that once like we're past like the calm stuff. Like I want to see one of those giant snakes just like out in the open. Like heck yes, that feels so good to see that and so intimidating.
Because I think a lot of us can agree we don't want Final Fantasy 15 again.
No,
the issue with Final Fantasy 15, I really enjoyed 15, but you spend so much of that time driving that it's crazy. You know, like the hunts are like the most fun part of the game's gameplay, in my opinion, when you're going to look for monsters and stuff. But dude, like the world's just big for the sake of being big.
Exactly.
And when you're driving, like what is in between your driving? Like the reason people have contention with FF15, even if you did have like a game like FF7 that had a lot of towns and stuff like that, 15 didn't have towns. It had two. It literally had like the one on the cliff, and then the really big one that's like a story town, and everything else was gas stations and Denny's. So like that's what you look forward to. It's like, oh, we're making a pit stop. It was like driving through fucking Arizona. Like it was, the whole game was like that. You're eventually just gonna run into a gas station and a Denny's, and then you stop, and then you just keep going type shit. And then there's like, you know, a beach town, which is practically a dock. So that's the problem with 15, is that there's really not a lot of like big stuff that happens in between your journey. 7 is not that. 7 is like medium-sized town, small-sized town, Union Harbor, you know, big place, lots of shit happens here. Cross the damn ocean, Costa del Sol, small town. Eventually get to not Medeal, it is Barrettstown, Corel, and Mount Corel. Dungeonous area, dungeon mountain area that leads to the Golden Saucer, big town. Because now that I start like thinking about it, there's about like 5 or 6, maybe 5 like actual really big locations in FF7 on the way to the Forgotten City, and everything's kind of like medium to smaller size.
Yeah, it's like Gold Saucer's a fucking huge amusement park. It's
like the biggest one.
Yeah, I did ask earlier. I know it kickstarted some of your theories there, Max. But to bring it back, like again, I'll re-ask it. Gold Saucer. Are you expecting it to like have mini games and stuff like a lot like that, or do you have any different expectations for Gold Saucer? Because one of the highlights, one of the more memorable parts,
brain on
the
Max,
dating sequence, and
focus.
the chocolate racing, like we're doing chocolate racing. You think we're doing that?
Here's my answer to that. If I go into the Golden Saucer in the remake, and if I go into the arcade and I don't see a Mog machine that has me playing a barely interactive Mog dating sim, where eventually you get with the female Mog and make a bunch of tiny Mogs to get the GP that you need to spend on the rest of the arcade games. It's essentially the starter thing. If the Mog mating minigame is not in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, hashtag not my Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, well, I guess this is in yours
then.
then.
I think there's gonna be mini games. I mean, I can tell you what's gonna be guaranteed to be there is the Battle Arena.
Oh, yeah.
That's 100% gonna be in this game, because they had the Battle Arena in Remake Part 1 under Wall Market. They're gonna have that Battle Arena.
Oh, heck yeah.
I don't know if you'll get Omni Slash maybe quite yet, but they're gonna have that 100%.
And it'll be different than the Battle Arena from, you know, the Don Corneo's Battle Arena. You know, and I think that was just like a setting up for this thing. That it's like, here's the bigger one that's run by, not Dine, what's his name?
D? Is it Dio?
It's Dio. Yeah, he's gonna be wearing a Speedo. He has.
Yes.
If Dio's not a giant buff dude wearing a Speedo, hashtag not my Final Fantasy VII.
Yep.
You know, I think.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, I hope the Haunted House Mansion is still in.
I think all that shit.
Personality.
All that's gonna be there.
They didn't really skip on anything in Part 1. They didn't. So it's like,
Heck yeah.
expect a lot.
I mean, to be completely honest, they turned Wall Market into like 10 times more than it was in the original.
They did.
And that was that was outside of the Shinra headquarters, right? That was the big place of the original Final Fantasy VII that you actually hung out in for more than like a few seconds. So, will they be doing that to the place you technically spend the most time in the entire original game? Yeah, I think they're gonna give you a shit ton of stuff to do in Remake Part 2 in the Golden Saucer. And I think everyone's gonna be singing the music at the end. It's just gonna be the same ad nauseum theme that'll be in everybody's head, just like it was 25 years ago.
Heck yeah, yeah.
Now, Melanie, one more thing they'll have is the date, 100%. But this time, you'll be able to do Barrett again, Tifa and Aerith, of course. But also this time you'll be able to do Jessie.
Oh,
they really want to keep teasing that.
Oh, okay.
Wow. I think if you want to properly expand it, I think you should be able to go on a date with every single character in the party. And there's like moments where you have to choose like to bring Red 13 or to talk to Barrett, and they all add points, just like the moment in Remake Part 1 where it can either be Barrett, Tifa, or Aerith that reveals some big story thing, and Aerith is obviously the most important for the story, but everyone else is there. Yeah, dude, I think you could go on a date with the dog.
Because there's that they did for Remake, because certain things you did determine who you got in the cutscene and in that part. So this could be definitely gonna be more involved in this one. And I think you're right, Max. It'll be like anyone who's a possible option will be possible to get, and it'll be a trophy. Get everybody on the date multiple ways. Yeah, it's absolutely gonna be that.
And why do we think they would do that? A lot of people are like, they're not gonna be able to fit that much stuff in the game. I think they're hyper aware of players' expectations. You know, I think that, including what we went through in Part 1, the ending of Part 1 and how it deviated so hard really set people off. Where like the ending of some things will really sour the entire experience for a lot of people, and they don't understand what the ending of Part 1 means. So it can really dour like the rest of the game for you to like, no, dude, like 99% of that game was insanely faithful, like almost like word to word, like expanded so much on what the original was and is like better in many ways than the original Midgar. So why assume that they're just gonna throw all that out? Like the end of Part 1 was there so that they don't have to. They can literally set up for more stuff to happen. They can literally give themselves a little bit more freedom with how they're gonna tell this story. And you actually kill the time ghosts. You know, they're dead. So everyone being worried that, oh no, they're gonna do the same thing. Like no, they're dead. Like that was the whole point. They're supposed to be annoying and you kill them. I mean, I still don't agree with it completely. Right? I wish they did handle it differently. But it does set up for a Part 2 to be a situation that is going to be way better than Part 1, in my personal opinion.
I have a pretty important question, because it's about the progression in this game, and if they're going to carry any over, and I'm pretty sure both of you already know the pros elegant way to probably solve this. How are they going to handle carrying over your progress, especially Materia, and tell me how it's going to be the Yuffie scene, how she's going to take over Materia.
Yeah, it's going to be the scene real early.
Have you guys played or seen Final Fantasy VII? Oh God, I forget what the New Threat.
The Phantom thing.
I haven't played it.
Yes. Okay. So if you get a chance to play it, I'm just gonna tell you guys, you'll fucking love it. If you love Final Fantasy VII, you will fucking love it. It's fantastic. It's just an expansion. It adds more mechanics. It makes Materia combinations like way smart. But it does set up for a Part 2 to be a situation that is going to be way better than Part 1, in my personal opinion.
I have a pretty important question, because it's about the progression in this game, and if they're going to carry any over, and I'm pretty sure both of you already know the most elegant way to probably solve this. How are they going to handle carrying over your progress, especially Materia, and tell me how it's going to be the Yuffie scene, how she's going to take over Materia.
Yeah, it's going to be the scene real early.
Have you guys played or seen Final Fantasy VII? Oh God, I forget what the New Threat.
The Phantom thing.
I haven't played it.
Yes. Okay.
New Threat? Is that what he's saying?
So if you get a chance to play it, I'm just gonna tell you guys, you'll fucking love it.
Because it's about the progression in this game, and if they're going to carry any over, and I'm pretty sure both of you already know the most elegant way to probably solve this. How are they going to handle carrying over your progress, especially Materia, and tell me how it's going to be the Yuffie scene and how she's going to take all your Materia.
Yeah, it's going to be the Yuffie scene real early.
Have you guys played or have seen Final Fantasy VII? Oh God, I forget what the New Threat.
The fan,
Have you ever
I've heard
seen
of
fan
it.
thing?
I haven't
Yeah.
played it.
Yes. Okay, so if you get a chance to play it, I'm just going to tell you guys, you'll fucking love it. If you love Final Fantasy VII, you will fucking love it. It's fantastic. It's just an expansion. It adds more mechanics.
sick.
It makes materia combinations like way smarter. Like they actually have impacts on stuff, and it also changes a lot of story stuff. And one of those story things is that just makes sense in a really smart way, and a lot more side quests, which are genuinely thought through. One thing that they do in there is that there's a scene after Cloud tells his story, and once it's all done, Yuffie isn't a side quest where you have to go to a forest to find her. No, she gets in while everyone is sleeping that night after calm for the morning. She gets in and sneaks in like a ninja and steals everything.
Yeah.
And that's
Makes
actually
sense.
part of the story. And then you run into her when you're on your way. Our materia's gone. Your whole party's like, what the heck happened? Like, and you're sort of questioning it. And the party leaves, and you run into her on the way out there, and you literally have to like fight her to get your materia back. So I think they'll do something extremely similar, except you won't get your materia back.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna have to take away your power. Like, I don't think you're gonna be level 50 or 60 or whatever at the start of this game. You're gonna start fresh, pretty much.
Hold
Yeah,
on
I
a
don't think
second.
they're
I'm
gonna
look this up.
dot hack the game.
No,
where your
no.
save file continues.
Okay, I'm back. So I was just looking at it. So yeah, it's just a mod for FF7, the original, not remake even. I mean, I don't know, I haven't played it, but it didn't look too interesting.
Use right over? No, I think it's a different game. There might be like a completion bonus of some kind, you know, for doing something from the if you have save data. But if we're talking about actual progression, like, no, this is a different game, just like Final Fantasy X-2, just like 13 Part 2, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I definitely agree with that. Another thing I'm excited to see and hope it comes to pass is I think Red 13 is going to be playable, player-controlled character.
Yeah, I think he will. I think every main party member will be playable, at least in some way. I don't think they're gonna make any character you have not playable.
Yeah, I mean, that's my question to you guys is how do you think, Damiani, how do you think they're actually going to expand the playability / battle system now that you have way more characters?
Yeah, that's been a question because I
Obviously,
don't
we know that we don't get Sid or Vincent, so yeah, that's wrong.
think they'd expand from beyond 3 players. I do think, I mean, Max, I think we might have talked about this, or I might have talked with Brad. I'm forgetting who I talked about because I talked about it so much. Like in your background in fighting games, back to the assist system, where you call out other players that are just in your parties. When they're just hanging out back there, it's like, oh, well, they are now, each character can have like a partner with them, and they have, when you switch to them, if they have enough like ATB, they can like, no, summon in this person and maybe do a combo attack with them, which combo things could be a thing that they open up a little bit more by like, because, sorry, this is going from what I saw in this like 3 presentation yesterday, but there's a thing about like combining characters' powers for like a fusion thing. I was like, dude, that would be really sick if like someone does like this materia attack and I do it, and at the same time it causes like a combined effect on an enemy, or just combo type attacks. Is like, you're gonna have a lot of party members. I think that's the best way to handle it, is like, just by having some kind of like assist or call-in system.
And
yeah,
we technically got that in Yuffie's DLC.
yeah, exactly,
It's practically there.
Dual text.
Yeah.
Dual text, triple text. Roll in.
Yeah, how do you feel, Brad? How expansive do you think it's going to get? Do you think like dual text, triple text is kind of where they're going?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of party members and a lot of like possible combinations. I wonder
Yeah,
if
we
they
know
handle,
there's
like, Chrono Trigger, where,
synergy,
like,
so
to do a specific move, you need a specific party member combination or something like
but
that.
you can't bring
I can see them
in
doing, like, a few, 'cause it can get
people
really dicey
from
if
the
you have
outside unless they have
every party
backline
member, like, that's a
command.
lot of moves and they're all individual
Which
moves.
is an
I think maybe like
emergency
one or two, maybe, but
scenario.
then I do definitely think the assist thing of your party members coming in, because like they want that feeling of these characters all being together. They
team.
don't want you to feel a team. They don't want you to feel like team A, team B kind of thing like that. Like, yeah, they may not be out there the whole time, but their presence is there with you on the battlefield.
You want Barrett to fastball special Tifa, and she like dolphin kicks the shit out of something. Like that should happen. Yeah, I feel like once again, I think a lot of stuff that happens in Yuffie's DLC is sort of telling for where they're going to go. Sonon wasn't playable, obviously, but he was doing stuff that there's no reason why he couldn't be playable with all the dual tech things and stuff like that. It's like they were focusing on really Yuffie's combat is like the best example of where they want to go with this. Oh yeah, we fixed the air combat. We fixed a lot of this other stuff. It feels a lot better now. You know, like there's already big improvements even within 1 year of the original release. So I think they're definitely going to do team up attacks. That's absolutely going to be there. But I feel like they're going to push it even further, and they could save this for part 3, but I don't think they're going to, because there's already a big part 2 once you leave Midgar story element that brings the party together, and that's the fact that you have a cell phone. You get the PHS in part 2 when you leave. So to me, like active PHS during battle makes a lot of sense, where you're always going to have 3 characters on screen. But to me, like you Final Fantasy X that shit,
Okay,
and you can
yeah,
just, depending on ATB, pop in the other dude.
Yeah.
Bring in Red 13 replaces Tifa, go crazy, you know. And now you have a battle system that is structurally the similar as before, 3 characters doing things, but now you can rotate in other characters when their ATB is ready. And it's like, oh, Sis, okay, kind of thing. Red 13's ready to go, snap him in, like do some crazy stuff, and then you just reattune all the monsters to deal with like 5 to 6 to 7 of a party member at any given time.
Yeah, I think
so
that's
that's
a
like.
good way.
Yeah, and that makes it not feel like all right, sitting at the outside of
I
Midgar,
wish, but
Aerith,
no.
Tifa, and Cloud, let's go. Like picking all the girls, huh? Really? We're not even. See you later. Like that whole like weird part of the game where it's like everyone, like Cloud just picks the people that he likes the most, and everyone just pieces out and goes sits in an inn. No, like they have to fix that issue. That's like a problem. Everyone needs to be in this together, so they have to fight together in some way. So I think it's a way to create a solution to that issue of the original FF7.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll even go a step further, put like more potential on-screen prompts, like if you fulfill conditions to like call out players for like those special combo, like you did the dual text and stuff, where it's like, like just to make it feel like it's even more action heavy without going too far, so it still feels like the system that they're doing right now.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll change anything about like ATB, like the slowdown stuff. Like it looks spectacular and stuff, but I wonder if they're going to make any refinements to that, or they're going to leave it at, like, it's going to look just the same. Do you think they change anything about that, or leave it alone?
No.
I think it will be changed. I think a lot of the foundation is already there. You know, like a lot of what they're
Why
not
would
going
you
to change
change
the
it?
battle system at all. In fact, like figuring out that battle system probably took them years.
Long time.
To even figure out how to get that shit online and actually functioning the way it does. So they're not going to get rid of that. But what they can do is like expand it. And yeah, getting rid of some of the moments that really took time off the clock type of stuff could be important.
What about summons? I mean, they looked cool and they were awesome, but like, you think they're going to?
What would you think they would change?
You
You just
said.
said.
Do you have any ideas about what you want to see change about summons? Cool, and they were awesome. But
And yeah, getting rid of some of the moments that really to even figure out how to get that shit online and actually functioning the way it does. So they're not going to get rid of that. But what they can do is like expand it. And yeah, getting rid of some of the moments that really took time off the clock type of stuff could be important.
What about
What would
summons?
take time
I mean,
off
they
the
looked cool
clock?
and they were awesome, but like, you think they're going to? I
Talk
feel like it's the system they might do the most changes to potentially. Do you have any ideas about what you want to see change about summons, or did you like how they were? Keep them as is?
Summons are a tricky thing. It depends how like powerful they want these summons to feel. To me, in Remake, they felt pretty powerful because it's a rare occasion, and they can really mess with stuff up. But
Yeah.
I don't know why
I don't know
you
if they're
think
gonna make you
summons
just
would be
pop a summon
different.
every
They're
fight,
exactly the
'cause that kinda
same.
almost takes away their power to an extent, I think, and makes them feel less special. But Damian, the only reason that makes me think they could be incorporated more is because of what we're hearing from 16 and how incorporated they sound. I wonder if they're like, you know, like, okay, well, we can make these summons more part of the combat some way.
Yeah.
I don't want them all the time. I don't want to be able to call them anytime I want kind of thing, but maybe a little more frequent, sure.
Yeah, and part one, like you bring up a great point about like it's a Final Fantasy game. Of course, there has to be summons. You know, even though what is in the original FF7 in Midgar, no summons.
Yeah.
You know,
No, yeah.
The summons in part one really felt like, well, we can't release a Final Fantasy 7 remake, even though there's no summons. We can't release a game with no summons. That's what people. That's like a staple of the series. So to me, part one feel like they shoehorn them in. You know, they randomly show up. They are very powerful. You fight them in VR, like type of stuff. It felt like they had to like sort of like stretch their imaginations of like, so how do we actually make this work with this part of the game? You know, and it definitely comes across as like, okay, you're pushing the limits a little bit. Like I think I remember finding Chocomog in like a giant air fan vent, just sitting there. It's like, oh, okay. They're just like sprinkled throughout random places, like they just given to you by some people for like, wow, that's very powerful. This is insane. Like they're not really handled with a ton of care, I would say, in part one. But in part two, that's different. Like you're probably gonna get Chocomog or something like that when you immediately go to the Chocobo farm. It'll be a different one. I think the way summons are presented to the player will be more naturally integrated into the environment and the world. That'll make a lot more sense. Gameplay wise, I don't know how they're gonna handle it because if they're super powerful, then the random thing might not be
Wrong.
worth it. You know, but it depends how you recover MP.
It's
It
just
depends
part
what
of the
resources
open
they
world
use,
and
like
that's
how-
it.
And
It's
if
not-
they
you
make
don't
it like
find any
FF7 OG,
summons.
where they're just super expensive. You know, like Chocomog didn't cost a lot, but eventually like you only get summon Bahamut so much, dude, because geez, you better have a lot of tents ready to go, or else this is just gonna, you know. And I feel like yeah, what you're saying is absolutely right. Fitting them into an action combat setting is difficult. So I don't know what their answer is going to be, but I think they'll feel a lot more natural in part two than they were in part one.
Yeah. They were like on a I'm trying to remember. Were they on like a meter in part one, or you take a lot of damage and you be able to summon them?
They were random, man. I don't even remember. Like they just showed up sometimes.
Maybe just something where it feels more like predictable. And you can kind of control the outcome
What
of
is
some
he
of them.
They were random, man.
Yeah. They were like on a I'm trying to remember. Were they on like a meter in part one, or you take a lot of damage and you be able to summon them?
They were random, man. I don't even remember. Like they just showed up sometimes.
Maybe just something where it feels more like predictable. You can kind of control the outcome more, I guess.
Yeah, 'cause-
just making them rare still, but like
Yeah.
you could kind of build towards it easier.
Because they
would
follow
just
kind of
do
similar
damage in the
pattern or
original
like choice of how they
FF7,
show up
yeah.
in like FF15, where it's like this is the power of the god type thing. They show up not exactly when you need them, but sometimes when they should. You know, like that kind of thing is when they would show up. I don't know.
So
I can't remember.
to double check for 7 remake, because I was trying to remember. I can remember. So summons cannot be used at will. Require special conditions to be activated. One of them requires characters to sustain damage during battle. During boss battles, summons can be used once the boss takes.
Oh,
a
they
specific
don't-
amount of damage.
he doesn't
If the condition is
remember
met,
how
green energy will
they-
manifest in the air,
summons
highlight the
have
characters in a
happened.
some
Yeah,
gauge
it's
of
the
yours,
same.
and then the timer. Yeah.
And this is why Carbuncle was broken. Because the DLC, I think Carbuncle was the DLC. Remember that one? You would get low on health or something, and it would essentially like full revive absolutely everybody. Or it was one of those summons that did that, and it was just like, wow, okay, it's just a complete revival. Jesus, it's like a second chance summon for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Carbuncle
replacing
was
Phoenix,
They
really
practically
good.
did,
Yeah.
Maxi dotted the journey to Temple of the Ancients. We did skip a landmark, and I know they have they reworked it in Intergrade, so we saw maybe a hint what they're doing with it. But the physical location, Fort Condor. Yeah, obviously we expect minigame return, and do you expect the physical place to actually be in the game and gonna go visit it?
This is my general answer to everything in part two. If you ask the question, do you expect place from the OG game to show up in part two? My immediate answer is absolutely. Like, because the devs know that. The devs 100% know that if it's not there, people
I
will
don't
be
know
pissed.
why we don't have
If
Fort
Dio's not
Condor
wearing
yet.
a bikini,
I guess it
people
is
will be
kind of
pissed,
part
you
of
know? Like,
3,
so I
isn't
think it'll
it?
be there. I think it'll be integrated into the story.
But there
a
is
lot
no
more, where it'll
Fort
be like, oh, yeah, this is where all
Condor
this is where
in
Fort Condor game comes from.
FF7
Then you see like a bunch of Shinra soldiers like running across the road or
Like,
something.
there is no
running towards
fort,
Fort Condor. You're like,
so-
we should help them. Like, no, we gotta go do our thing. No, we should help them. Like type of thing. That'll probably friggin' happen.
Yeah, I can kind of see it being like almost a tourist kind of place, since that's what the game.
But it
originated
does.
from.
It is part of
I would
getting the
love
big
if-
materia. So
If they include Fort Condor tournament arc at Fort Condor,
Heck yeah.
playing Shinra people in Fort Condor or something, like I think you should totally have still like the actual Shinra soldiers invading it kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
you can goof it up if you don't do Fort Condor at Gold Saucer, which also makes complete sense.
yeah.
I hope the game is tied into that location though some way.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like, why would they include Fort Condor? Like, almost like a one-to-one recreation, but better of the old RTS thing that you did in OG7. Why would they essentially remake that in Intergrade when you could save that for the next game? Because it isn't very much like Square just to be like, oh, we're just gonna take the exact same minigame and put it over here too. You're like, all right, I did this. You know, maybe they will. It more makes me think that they're gonna like have an action RTS minigame like with your actual party where you
I can see
coordinate.
that, yeah.
You know, where like maybe you get into like you coordinate the structure of how enemies go in certain directions and your own like resource and units, but then you actually fight when you get there. Like that would make a lot of sense to me. Where you really expand on that shit.
Yeah, I think that was what was coming to my mind first, Max, is that maybe how they solve it is they just make your party members do like that type of RTS battle, and that would make more sense for it to be like a physical location where that was like actually under attack. Because otherwise, yeah, I think they gotta play with expectations and have fun with it. Like a tournament arc would be sick. Like maybe like every so often, like there's a tournament there, or just the tournament. Because I mean, the original game it would progress far enough for the events at the Fort Condor to advance. You could go back there and keep doing the next stage of it. But I don't think they're gonna probably do that again.
That's the other challenge of like how far do you take Fort Condor in part two, because you don't have an airship to get back there to progress world events to see things change. You know, like you essentially have to take the boat back across the Atlantic Ocean of Final Fantasy VII, right? So I'm kind of curious like what they're gonna do.
I think I know. So the minigame will be back. There'll be NPCs who challenge, and that's how you qualify for the tournament at Fort Condor. So it'll just be a single tournament at Fort Condor, like the big championship, and it happens at any point in the game once you qualify. But like if you go too far, like you only get like one chance against an NPC, and if, like I don't know if they'll give you one chance, but you got to beat certain NPCs because the system already exists in 14 with Triple Triad, that they have like story NPCs that you can challenge to beat them, and then like you qualify, go to the tournament, and then you win or lose there, and that's it. It's kind of like the Blitzball tournament in 10. There's, I mean, you play Blitzball later to the sphere grid, but like that one tournament beginning, that's it. You just do that, the story beat, and then you move on from it.
Yeah, this is like your Triple Triad turtle dudes that are integrated and stuff like that, like random NPCs that are looking for games or matches or stuff, and you can make it fit in that way. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
and it's totally optional. Yeah, I think you completely miss it if you don't want to do it. Like it's a skippable thing. Yeah, but you know what you want.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to treat it like Gwent. I don't know if you guys played Witcher 3, like Gwent in that, and there's like tournaments and stuff like that, story stuff. So yeah, but like making Fort Condor optional is like.
It's funny they're talking about cards and stuff, and it cleans up what ends up being a thing.
Exactly. Like I think all the stuff like Vincent, is optional. I think all the things that were essentially optional in the original are now going to be story, and there will be additional side quest stuff that will be the new optional, right? Because they already did that in Remake Part 1. All the stuff that was essentially like kind of optional in Part 1 or in the OG was essentially integrated into story now, and there wasn't much. But then they added a bunch of crazy other stuff like Deep Ground and shit like that that also became some optional stuff if you want to go fight some super mega behemoth,
Yeah.
Maybe you can watch the Loveless play in Iltana Genesis.
That's a theory. That is a theory.
One thing that we
I
saw
don't know why
in
the fucking
Remake
Gold
was that
Saucer
pretty
thing
beautiful
is
CG
loveless.
cutscene of the getting kind of like the history of like the Statue of the Ancients and their civilization.
But I don't know
We
why
never saw
none of
anything
the
like that
Genesis
before.
shit is in that
I think
version
they
of
would've done, like,
Loveless.
do you think
So.
it ends there? Because my gut is there's more to this. Like I think the Ancients, etc., might play like a pretty big role, and at the point that like we might see them more than just Aerith somehow. Or do you think like, the Ancient Settlers versus Genova like is going to come into play a little bit more prominently somehow?
You know where this comes into play? Part 3. All the materia and stuff, all the ancient caves, etc., like the materia combinations and all that stuff, like Knights of the Round. Like, how the hell does Knights of the Round make sense in the original FF7? It makes zero sense. You're essentially summoning all these like creatures, mythical creatures, and then all these dudes in techno, like King Arthur and the Knights of Justice show up to whoop ass. And like, okay, this is just somebody's crazy idea. They just threw it in the game. But how do you make that actually make sense? Like, oh no, the Cetra summoned these like 15 lofty knights to save them, from ancient times type shit to fight against Genova.
What are you
and you have to go discover
talking
that power. And
about?
essentially, when you touch the materia or something, what do you get like a vision of it? You can't communicate with them, obviously, like Aerith can, but maybe like you get glimpses of like what this was
Why
used
did
for.
they think? Why does this idiot think that they're going to bring summons into part of the story? It's never been part of the story, you dumb fuck.
They had and how connected they were with the planet.
Okay.
So dumb. Why would you think that?
Amazing to me if they go that direction. That's how you really expand Part 3 if Part 2 goes all the way to Northern Crater.
Yeah, like that makes me wonder if they'll expand upon like
Fucking
Genova more
retarded,
as a
dude.
being actually, like seeing Genova like when like whatever crash lands on the planet, this fucking weird eldritch
horror
alien
thing,
kind of thing, and just kind of diving into more of that because Genova's like pretty damn mysterious throughout the original.
And they should keep it that way. And I don't think they should explain everything about Genova, but I think there should definitely be like expansions. Because
What else is there to explain?
What actually looked like, for God's sake, this other weird like Final Fantasy 14 looking world that they lived in type of thing. So I mean, I think smaller expansions on that and leaving the mystery intact, where it's like, oh no, we have to go throughout the planet and find their power because it's still around. And Bugenhagen will probably understand that.
Yeah.
He's going to be the one. Aerith is going to mention it in Part 2, and she'll probably say that like before she gets axed or something like that. She'll mention it.
What are you talking about?
It makes a lot of sense that Part 3 might be pretty sick and the most connected to the planet of everything.
He's saying some dumbass shit right now.
Yeah, you gotta sell me on this idea.
Dumbass
What
shit.
the weapon fights will be like because those things gotta be like something special because they're doing.
Yeah, like how you gonna do underwater?
Yeah, like I don't know. It's like okay, I can tackle that one, but I can't.
How do you even battle something that's like 200 feet tall?
Yeah, well,
like,
torso battle.
Like do we just hack at its foot and then it falls on its knee and then you climb up its knee and you hack at its nuts and then you just keep going higher and higher and higher?
Isn't that what the Dragon's Dogma video just talked about, like making giant enemies and like you always just hack at their feet? So it's like
yeah.
I mean, granted, there is people that are working at Square right now that are literally ex-Dragon's Dogma battle designers. So
You could transition, start the feat, some cutscene transition. Like I think what Diamond Weapon you fight on the airship or something like that. Like
I don't know why you think that we're not just going to keep slashing their shins like we always have been. Why do you think things are going to be
you could do some
different?
shit like that, like something transitioning. Maybe not for all of them, but like moving up it.
I think they.
I feel like this is being such a buzzkill, but like they're saying such stupid shit.
Because they have
Boosting everyone up?
Yeah, like not just that, but like how do you fight this thing in Advent Children? How do we make that actually work in a game? And that's like a big challenging gameplay thing that designers kind of love sometimes, if not hate. Where it's like, so how do we make an actual giant kaiju fight interesting? Like how do we fight this with your party? And the answer is a Gatling gun. The answer is like you just get on a turret, and there's a big turret sequence, and everyone gets on turrets.
You're
and
just
we feel
gonna
like
fight it
we're
like anything else.
And you just turret. I swear to God, if it's that, I'll be pissed.
They could do.
They're not doing fucking
like a
gimmicks.
different phase. But I think like the end of the original game when you're fighting like Sephiroth, you got like 2 groups or 3 groups, whatever, fighting at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah, you could have
be kind of sick. Like,
on a mini
actually be a cool concept to do it all in real time. So it's not like you do one phase move on the other. It's like you got to juggle like all your party members split into like 3 groups potentially, and like you realize, oh, you need to attack this part, so then we unlock like a barrier on this, we can do damage to this in this window. Like it's almost like raid mechanic at that point where it's like, holy crap, this could get pretty elaborate fast.
I think that's the big challenge of Part 3 actually.
I think they did show some sort of gun,
integrate your whole party,
but that was just like
in several ways.
aiming shit.
Yeah, that's a big.
So that seems like okay. So that's immediately what makes Part 3 way different than Part 2, right? Because Part 2 is just a globetrotting adventure. The big difference in Part 2 from Part 1, open world. Not open world, but like big environments where we're scouring the world, coming across new places. We essentially feel like we choose where to go, even though you don't. And you essentially make the progress, right? But Part 3 is like, oh, the world's at your disposal. You have an airship. So what's now the big crazy gimmick of this game? Do you fly around like on an air? Oh, there you go. That's how you engage the fight. You like fly around with the airship with like guns and stuff like that, and like you actually pilot the airship, and then everyone parachutes off or something. Like I could just imagine how much fun that'll be. Like imagine the visual spectacle of like an aerial shot through the clouds of the diamond weapon trying to like knock you down. Like okay, this will sell some copies of the game right here.
Yeah,
we landed boys on the shoulder.
On the shoulder.
Let's go. Yeah, that sounds pretty.
Diamond weapon
awesome.
dies. What are you talking about?
I wouldn't be surprised if one of those battles you were in some kind of like mech outfits or mech device fighting one of them. Would be like,
yeah, sure,
it'd be sick.
Some Shinra
weapons just to counter that. Like just one of them, not all of them. Just one would be kind of cool if it came like you're a bunch of mini mechs trying to fight like the bigger mech. Like hey, it'd be hype.
We did just see Scarlet in practically a Final Fantasy VI-esque like Shinra mech weapon sort of thing. I don't know, man. There's already some pieces in place here.
Yeah. Max, I wanted to know if there's anything we really haven't talked about that you felt like needs to be said about like Rebirth that we didn't really cover, or if you feel like we've covered some good ground here, because I know sometimes we always have something that just doesn't seem to come out from our questions that you just burning to talk about.
I think the only thing is that about the names of the games, and I think they're
Gives
they're
a
really trying to make a story
shit about the
Sephiroth,
names.
Right? Where
Doesn't
remake
matter.
is referring to Sephiroth's intentions in part 1. I'm going to remake what happened before and remake the timeline in a way where he practically lets the party destroy fate. So that's part of his plan. I think Rebirth, if the game goes as far as I think it does, which is essentially delivering the black materia to Sephiroth, that is Sephiroth's rebirth. He died, right? The Sephiroth that you see in several different occasions in part 1, if not every single time in the original, that lead you to the Northern Crater, are essentially manifestations of him. They're not actually him. They're like Jenova self versions of him, if not clones, that are making their way up there. So his rebirth is when he gets the black materia, right? So I think that's referring to Sephiroth, in my opinion, if it goes that far. That's the same way that Rebirth is the end game, like they do in there. So the question is, like, the title of the third one, I think, is going to be extremely relevant to like Sephiroth and his intentions. Because I don't know if you remember in the trailer, there is a big-ass splash text that pops up on the screen at some point that is like, what is Sephiroth's endgame? And then Cloud tells you he's trying to, you know, he's trying to take over the planet with Jenova at his side. But that's Cloud's uneducated ass that's talking about that. That's essentially his, like, his interpretation of what Sephiroth's intentions are, the old version of Sephiroth. So now I think, like, oh, what is his actual endgame is going to be the big, like, okay, so what is his intention by doing all this? What does he actually want players to do? And that's going to go back to the 7 seconds thing. It's going to go back to all the crazy teases and shit that he's like fucking with Cloud. It's like, okay. And that's what part 3's naming convention. And the reason why it's like, I can't wait, like Nomura's like, I can't wait to share with you what part 3 is called. Like, and I'm like, you crazy bastard, all right, I'm on board. What is that going on? So that's where I actually feel that this read stuff at the beginning of the subtitles of every single game is actually referring to Sephiroth and his intentions. And what that last one will be, I don't even know. If it's not Reunion, because it's not going to be Crisis Core thing again, you know, I don't know. It's going to have to be something interesting.
Revengeance.
Yeah,
Revengeance, reanimated, I don't know, dude.
Resurrections.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I mean, yeah, I think it's spot on with that. I
Y'all are
I
just
totally believe that
y'all are
beats and
thinking
stuff,
it's
but
gonna be
I
the
do
same
feel
thing as remake
part
and
3
Rebirth,
will
but it
fulfill
ends
that, but
up
I think it's going to go
being
beyond that. I think there's so much of that game, like at least half to a third of that game is
what
going to be
was it?
beyond what
Not
we've even seen, like, in the
Revelation.
original game. Because I think that's what this end game is. I feel like it's leading to something more than just,
Revelation.
all right, no matter what happened, there is a final confrontation with Sephiroth, and it's just over, like one way or the other. Like I think there's going to be more
Which
to
is
that.
totally
I'm
different
slightly
name.
disappointed. I mean, I'm also dreading how the hell they're going to like one up these Sephiroth battles. I'm like, okay, like how like we just did Advent Children self-fight with him for the end of 1. It's like, what are you going to, I know what it's going to look like probably, but it's like, how? Like, are you going to dazzle me by making my PS5 like shake to its core with like Supernova or something? Like,
It's so hard.
that's how you know what's happening. There's no tell except that's the only tell for defending against it. Is your
I got
brain.
it. So how you taught that is you play as Zack and you fight Cloud as the final boss, who's under the control of Sephiroth, and you have to snap him out of it.
Oh, the Zack timeline. Oh, shit, because Cloud will be different in that oh, shit, what if Cloud dies in Zack's timeline?
Yeah.
And Zack has to, oh, Brad just figured it out.
Gonna have to fight Cloud.
They flip it.
Figured
where, like, all the
it
crazy
out.
trauma that happens
Level
to Cloud because Zack died
16.
is flipped in Zack's timeline.
Punish Zack.
Potentially punish Zack is what happens. And then why does that make part 3 even better when that eventually they get to part 3? If Aerith is already dead, right? In Zack's timeline, which is presumed, right? Dead flowers at the end of the Yuffie DLC, that's presumed. So who's the important character that might get axed, right? If she's already gone. It could be the fact that Zack might have to actually kill his like best friend. And that would fuck him up and leave them on a very weird road for part 3. And then what's the ultimate goal? Is that Aerith is now gone in both timelines. And since she's like in the planet, she can get the timelines together to get Cloud and Zack together. And you guys don't have to hate each other, like kick his ass. I'm like, oh god, this would be the fucking coolest thing in the world. So I think stuff like that is where, like, yeah, maybe the spoiling Crisis Core to build up these characters' relationship with each other and why it's important and why Zack is important is worth it for this crazy stuff to eventually happen, because like the possibilities there seem like, oh, that's the coolest fucking thing ever. Like that's so emotionally resonant for both characters. In part 2, we like take both timelines and Empire Strikes Back, The Godfather 2 their asses, where everything is super sad, everyone's in the worst they possibly can get to build up for this big epic, let's go kick his ass, part 3. Like, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Right.
I'm so excited. This is from day one, Max. This has been the hardest thing when they confirmed there's gonna be multiple parts. Is that I cannot stand waiting. I was like, part of me is like, I will wait 10 years for you to finish all of these, and I can play them all back to back to back. But now it's like, nope. So
if you did, you would have missed out on all this fun.
Yeah,
It's like not knowing what the hell's gonna happen. That's like my final question for you guys of all this conversation is part 2 is coming out a lot sooner than people were expecting. And that is mostly down to a few reasons. Nomura recently said that development is changed, that they recently changed their development structure, which I think is referring to the fact that they switched to Unreal Engine 5. I think UE5, this might be one of the first really big UE5 games that is probably helping development a lot, because from what it seems like from Unreal when they were making this engine, is that they're trying to like not make it so that you can add even more detail, to make some of that stuff easier to do, right? Because development time is taking too long, the engines need to change. In the same way that like your engine of your car, you don't just keep sticking a bigger gas tank in the car to fit more gallons. No, you make the vehicle utilize less gas more efficiently. And that's kind of like the way everything's working now in the video game industry. We have to make things we do not take as long. And at a core fundamental level, the engine has to help out with that. So they keep saying that, oh yeah, it's going fast, it's going great. Things are coming online quicker than ever before. I think that's probably in tandem with that, the fact that they switched development and they probably switched engines and it's making things go quicker. So this one's coming out fast. And this game's probably way bigger, obviously, than part 1. So how far do you think part 3 is from part 2? My second question is, does part 2 end like Back to the Future 2, where it's like, here's a little bit of part 3 at the end of the trailer, at the end of the credits? I think they do.
It's possible.
Yeah.
You know, they could definitely tease something. They kind of did that with Intermission, I guess.
Nope,
a little bit,
it's
showing where
Unreal
it's gonna
Engine
go.
4, just
Yeah,
like I
teasing
thought.
something. Like Kingdom Hearts games were doing that. Is it PS2 kind of thing?
Yeah,
I think something.
I don't think it'll be playing something. I think there could be, because they've
Rather
already
than
been saying that
they
we have
wanted
people
to
that are already
keep it
working on
the
part 3. You know,
Yeah.
like all these projects are developed in tandem with each other. Things that were made in part 1 will obviously with part 3.
UE4
So
to get the
and the
game
world is a
out
big part of that from
sooner.
part 2 to part 3. Yeah, I think we're gonna get a Back to the Future 2 moment where it's like the sequel isn't that far away, that the final version isn't actually that far away. I think it'll be within like 2 years after part 2.
Shit.
That's optimistic. That's
Yeah,
optimistic.
it's possible.
Yeah.
But if you think how much comes online with part 2, once that's done, if it's as big as we think it is,
I think
there's a lot already done.
I think while that's possible, I think because the importance of finishing the trilogy, like nailing that ending, they might give themselves some more time just to really make sure everything is where they want it at. My guess is 3 years. I think it'll be 3 years after part 3 will be 3 years after part 2. So if beginning of 2024 is when we get Rebirth, then part 3 would be like 2027 probably, like sometime 2027 would be my guess.
Correct.
So
He's
yeah,
correct.
the,
It's 2027.
the lead producer was Katase was a little funny about that, saying like within 3 years we're releasing a groundbreaking sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it's like no, what you're saying means 4 years actually, and like you're thinking like in fiscal definition.
Didn't
or
you say
something
from
like that.
Intergrade though? I think you said we just released like the Intergrade this summer, and from 3 years from that.
That's
why I think
because
I did the same mistake too, Max. And when we were watching, like he literally just said this past. I was like, oh okay, because like 3 years from April of 2020 is not winter of 2024. Like,
He's referring to Intergrade.
Yeah, that also
makes sense because that finishes that game's development.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we got another in-between game, like a smaller like DLC thing, focusing on something else between part 2 and part 3.
There's no way we don't.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's like, is Elden Ring going to get DLC?
Yeah.
Of course it is. Absolutely, it's going to get DLC. Like I think it'll happen. I think it'll even happen for the final part as well. There'll be like another story or something like that brings things even more finality in some way.
And
so
Georgia Cerberus.
I'm sorry. What was your second question? I was like,
Yeah,
I
I was
answered. I
looking
forgot what
up,
it was. Now I can't
or
remember.
at
You said
least-
just like how long after? Yeah, like how many years?
You had something else. I forgot maybe.
Shit, I think
I was just looking up. Final Fantasy 7 Revelation is staying with you, Unreal Engine 4 instead of 5 still. The upcoming RPG is based on the same tech used in blah blah blah. Hamaguchi mentioned that switching to Unreal Engine 5 would have meant a longer development cycle. Yeah, exactly. Which wouldn't make sense for a business perspective and a player perspective. The team was even able to previously implement its own take on Unreal Engine 5's Nanite feature. For average person, there's an impression that bigger numbers are better, so most people ask why not 5. We had already worked with and customized UE4 for the remake series, so delivering it quickly to players, blah, blah, blah. Exactly. So, Max, assuming shit wrong.
we answered it, where it was like the following parts and how much time they take in between.
Yeah,
I think that was it.
All right.
You
Yeah.
know, how long we're going to be waiting in between, since we were 4 years from part 1 to part 2, and potentially my prediction like in year 2 to 3 years from part 2 to part 3. Yeah, like I don't think it's going to be like 2030.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be that long.
I don't think it's gonna be that long either. Yeah.
I hope I don't eat those words. So yeah, I would like to think that the development of all how fast part 2 is coming online is directly going to help out how part 3 is going to get made, because people don't really understand how a lot of like early game development works, and the things that will take the longest is actually getting systems online. Like, how do things function, right? What does our game do? Like, what do the characters do? Like, conceptualizing all that stuff and then getting it into states that is functioning is the part that takes the longest, because things will not work. Like, figuring out that battle system took years, and eventually getting it online took years. To the point where they're able to polish it now, like less than a year later, and integrate is like, whoa, yeah, that's when you have foundation, it's way easier to expand upon it, and like including graphics and visuals, because integrate
Yep,
way better
that's
than the
all
original
shit
did
I
too.
was saying.
Funny enough, in a lot of game development, art is the thing that comes online the fastest. Once you know what's in the game and everyone has a foundation of what I should be working on, bam, 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 shit comes online super fucking quick, man. And that seems to be a lot of what part 2 is. A lot of part 2 is like, so they have their world system figured out, they know what we're doing from part A to part B, putting stuff in the world, put stuff in there, we gotta make art assets for this. If they have good producers and directors to get that stuff done, then yeah, they probably have a concise plan of just like, get this shit online. That's why we can release in 2024,
Yeah.
If they just have to make a ton of art, that'll happen usually the quickest in a lot of game development.
Well, dang. I feel so excited, but that wait, always the wait, man.
Yeah.
It's like even like the next time we see, like, how do you feel like to wrap this up here? Do you want to see more at this point? And we are going to, but like personally, are you content? Would you rather just like skip ahead to winter 2024 and play it, or are you still excited to see more of what they have to reveal?
Winter
I'm looking forward to the
2024.
hype because
There's so much.
there's Ever Crisis and all those crazy remakes that they're putting out. Which even though on mobile are looking pretty interesting. There's also Crisis Core coming out at the end of this year, early next year, which will directly like tie in this stuff. We're gonna have quite literally another conversation just like this at the beginning of 2023 when the ending of Crisis Core like tries to tie in all this stuff, and it's gonna lead to all these conversations and things. That's gonna happen again. And then what happens within?
Oh, this
I'd say
video
if
came
Crisis
out
Core comes out in
before
January, February of
reunion.
2024, like winter time frame. Within 4 months after Crisis Core comes out, guess what we're getting? Most likely a state of play on 7 Remake Part 2. Because that's when the state of play happened for Part 1. It was like right around May. And E3 is coming back next year. What is E3 next year going to be jam-packed with? Because potentially Final Fantasy 16 might be out by then.
E3's not coming
Swears
back.
E3 is going to be out of 7 Remake Part 2. So we're just
heck,
revisiting
dumbass.
2019 all over again.
Looking so forward to that. Man, it'd be insane if 16 was out and they got both those games. Man, what a strong comeback here for like
That's a crazy
E3.
E3,
Oh
yeah.
man, like Square Enix needs to like own Hall at that point. just put it in there. But
But then we get the wonderful, like the build-up. Wait till Tokyo Game Show next year. There'll be another trailer, like all this stuff.
No, I'm remembering now because how cool is it going through like the opening bombing run like in person, like going through the briefing meeting when you sat there.
Yeah.
That stuff was so fun. I want that.
was
Yeah,
so
I want
fun.
that again. Yeah. That was
And then
just-
Make it Gold Saucer, man.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh,
There you
shit.
go. You're never
I
leaving.
bet that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're
So I think there's a lot to look forward to. I think there's, and it's obviously like they even said this. Please enjoy all the other Final Fantasy 7 things that we have working on until this comes out, because there's quite a few. There's a lot of things that are going to be coming out, including FF16 and Forspoken and Capcom's Toy Variety. There's so many games and things that are coming out in between this and the eventual, like when we get more information on Rebirth and not get to play Rebirth, that it's like, okay, there's going to be plenty of stuff to like wet our whistle on the way there.
Yeah, definitely agree. Well, I think that's good enough for now. As Max said, we'll probably be back at this when Crisis Core Reunion drops. So you can look forward to that. But otherwise, yeah, Max, obviously, I feel like everyone should know who you are. But just in case some new person come here and it's meeting you for the first time, where can they check out more of your stuff? And
So I usually stream on Twitch under Maximilian_dude, and yeah, I've been making YouTube videos on Final Fantasy VII stuff ever since the announcement of Remake. But I shockingly am a primary fighting game content creator, so I play a lot of action games, and especially fighting games, and Street Fighter 6 seems pretty exciting to somebody like me. So yeah, a lot of coverage of the like, whatever there's new stuff and theories and information about FF7 Remake Part 2, Rebirth. I'll definitely be covering it, and looking forward to playing some of the classic games, including Crisis Core Reunion. There's some new versions of FF7. I want to go through FF7 on PS1, you know, and play the actual OG version of the game, which would be great. So there'll be plenty of stuff leading up to Rebirth. I have to give you guys a shout out. So for anybody that wants to stick tuned with Easy Allies and everything that goes on with like media coverage, please follow whatever platform this goes up on. I don't know if we're on Kazaa or BearShare, but you definitely gotta follow. So yeah, big shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Max. Yeah, anytime.
Huzzah.
Yeah, thanks, Brad, for being here too, and carrying Easy Allies mantle to FF7 Remake there. With and personally, my dream is I hope the two of you end up at E3 next or whatever it is next year in the same session or something together.
Oh, shit,
Get an interview together.
One of those dev moments where they just sit in the back and just show us stuff. Like, oh god,
that's like my personal hope. So we'll try to like push Bloodworth a little bit. Like, hey, Bloodworth, kind of like pitch that to them as well. Like, hey, what's actually in? Make it happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thanks everyone for watching. And yeah, this is not really like a spoiler, I don't even know they're spoilers. So hopefully we put a spoiler warning at the beginning of this. But yeah, we'll be back with more FF7 coverage as it happens. But yeah, thank you to both. And until next time, everyone. Yeah, it's coming. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Get hyped.
All right, so that's it for this video. I will see y'all in the next one.